This is Kurtop, sharing 100 historical facts they don't tell you. Unforgettable marks on history's bricks. Mehrangarh Fort in Jodhpur is one of the most magnificent structures in India, but behind its beauty lie dark pages of history. 15 women's handprints remain on Loha poles' inner gates, silent witnesses to the tragic sati tradition. Sati was an ancient Hindu ritual where widows were expected to burn on their husband's funeral pyre. Women sometimes did this voluntarily, but usually were forced. This practice was officially banned by the British in 1829, but in India, it persisted until the 20th century. In 1843, after the death of Maharaja Man Singh, his wives left handprints on the wall before stepping into the fire. However, this isn't the fort's only such incident. In 1731, 6 wives and 58 concubines of Maharaja Ajit Singh also died in the flames. Tragedy started with the fortress's founding. In the 15th century, Saint Chidyavali Baba cursed Rao Jodha, saying his lands would face endless droughts. To break the curse, the king had Rajaram Meghwal walled up alive in the fort, but the curse apparently remains. Here, Maharajas died, tourists fell, and in 2008, a stampede at the Chamunda Devi temple killed or injured hundreds. Kazakh Tutankhamun. Sensational discoveries were made by Soviet Kazakh archaeologists in the late 1960s. The Issyk burial mound yielded thousands of gold artifacts and introduced the Golden Man, a new symbol for the Kazakh people. The burial mound is located on the left bank of the mountain river Issyk, near the city of the same name, which was later renamed Yessyk. In 1969, excavations began, and in 1970, the central burial chamber was opened, which turned out to have been looted. Beken Nurmukhanbetov, the young archaeologist, remained hopeful and continued excavations. Just 10 meters from the main burial site, he discovered an untouched chamber built from Tian Shan spruce logs. The more experienced Kamal Akishev then took over excavation of this new site. A sensation awaited the archaeologists here. From beneath the thick layer of earth, the scientists unearthed ancient artifacts one after another, and all of them were made of gold. In total, more than 4,000 gold items were counted. The remains of a young man in golden garments were found in a burial chamber, lying head to the west, earning him the name Golden Man. Scientists say the deceased was a Saka king, and later research found he was about 18 years old. He likely died from a sword or knife wound to the back. Some scientists say the remains are of a young woman, citing the bronze mirror and earring, but most believe the Golden Man was male. It is no longer possible to determine this using modern analysis. The remains have been lost. 40 golden rainbow cups. Volunteers and amateurs make many unusual discoveries. So, in 2017, after first getting permission from a local farmer, German volunteer archaeologist Wolfgang Gercht from the Brandenburg Archaeological Museum stumbled upon something shiny and golden in a field near the village of Beitz in northeastern Germany. It reminded him of the cap from a small bottle of liqueur, but it turned out to be a Celtic gold coin. After wandering, Gercht found 10 more coins and took them to the museum, where archaeologists excavated and raised the hoard to 41 coins. By comparing the coins' weight and size with similar coins from other hoards, Palekic determined they were minted over 2,000 years ago at the end of the Iron Age, around 125 to 30 before Christ. The Celto-Latin cultures then inhabited present-day England, France, Belgium, Switzerland, Austria, southern Germany, and the Czech Republic. Such coins are indeed often found in southern Germany, but in the north, in the province of Brandenburg, they did not live, which means there was an established trade network. Out of 41 coins, 19 are starters with a diameter of about 2 centimeters and an average weight of 7.3 grams. The remaining 22 coins are quarter starters with a diameter of 1.4 centimeters and a weight of 1.8 grams. They have no images, but their shape is striking. They are curved, and because of this feature, in German they are called Regenbogenschüsselchen, which translates as rainbow bowls. After all, according to legend, at the end of the rainbow, you will always find a pot of gold. It was believed that these coins fell straight from the sky. They were considered lucky charms, and some even attributed healing effects to them. Most likely, peasants simply found such coins after the rain, washed and shiny, right in the field. Akambaro figurines? An archaeological find that continues to spark debate among scientists. Some say it's an elaborate forgery, others believe it's authentic. Today, the figurines are kept in the Akambaro Museum, attracting many tourists from various countries. The collection includes small clay figurines, made in the shape of animals, dinosaurs, and humans. The findings were collected by the German immigrant Waldemar Julsrud. He claimed that he found the first artifact near a mountain located close to Akambaro. Then, Julsrud discovered similar items from the local residents of the settlement and decided to buy them. A metal door inside the rock. Since the early 21st century, many stories and rumors have circulated about Russia's Baikal-Amur mainline construction, some with real basis. During the active work on this railway, workers encountered anomalies and paranormal phenomena, causing many to call the main line haunted. Among these stories, special attention is given to tales about the ghost of the railway, a train passing by without a sound, witnessed by both construction workers and local residents. Scientists believe these stories may trace back to the 1940s, when prisoners hijacked a steam locomotive during an uprising in an escape attempt. Mysteries have also surrounded the Baikal-Amur mainline tunnels, particularly the Severomuysky Tunnel, whose construction lasted more than 25 years due to unexpected surprises that presented new challenges for the builders. The mysteries associated with these structures, including the story of the white shaman who foretold disasters, only add to the aura of mystique surrounding the railway. At every step, the builders encountered new obstacles that required immediate solutions. One of the most intriguing moments was the discovery of a metal door in one of the tunnel sections after an underground spring broke through, which led to the death of 30 people. The door, which became a real mystery, remained an unsolved secret, just like the strange sounds coming from underground resembling knocking. Attempts to explain these phenomena range from assumptions about a high concentration of radon gas, which can cause auditory hallucinations, to stories about evil spirits dwelling in the depths of the tunnel. The Devil's Bridge, part of the same highway, adds intrigue with its famous mysteries and myths. Despite technical and mystical challenges, the Severomuysky Tunnel and Devil's Bridge remain Baikal-Amur mainline's most important structures, and the stories associated with them continue to captivate the minds of both specialists and travelers. Answers to many questions have yet to be found, and each new mystery only deepens the enigma of these places. The Temple of the Falcon, with its mysterious message. In Berenike, the ancient port city of Egypt, archaeologists discovered the ancient Temple of the Falcon, which puzzled them because of decapitated birds, unknown deities, and a mysterious inscription, "You must not boil heads here." At the 1,700-year-old excavation site, 15 decapitated falcons were found. The pedestal features a stone monument of two unknown gods. Beside it, a 34-centimeter iron harpoon was found. In another area of the temple, a Greek-inscribed stele was found stating, "Boiling heads here is forbidden." It's unclear why the falcons were beheaded, why a stele with such an inscription was in the temple, and why the harpoon was placed near the falcons. The stele shows three deities, Harpocrates from Coptos, a child god, and two unidentified gods, one with a falcon head and a goddess with a cow horn and solar disk crown. It is likely that the beheaded falcons were offerings to these gods, particularly to the god with the head of a falcon. Remains of fish, mammals, and eggshells were also found in the temple. The temple shows that ancient religious practices persisted even after the advent of Christianity. At that time, Christianity was the state religion of the Roman Empire. The decapitated falcons and the ban on boiling heads raise many questions about the cults and beliefs in Berenike. A colorful Egyptian tomb. The Egyptian deserts continue to reveal the secrets of an ancient civilization known for its majestic pyramids. Recently, the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities unveiled a well-preserved tomb over 4,000 years old. The tomb is attributed to a high-ranking official named Kui from the 5th dynasty. This monument is part of the vast necropolis in Saqqara, south of Cairo. The tomb has a unique shape. An L-shaped corridor leads to a spacious hall with drawings depicting Kui at a table with sacrificial offerings. Some of the drawings retain bright colors associated with royalty. Archaeologists are trying to figure out the relationship between Kui and Pharaoh Djedkare Isesi, whose pyramid is nearby. One theory suggests that they might have been relatives. Mummified remains of Kui and broken canopic jars, vessels for organs, were also found in the tomb. The very first hybrid animal. Scientists reported that they have discovered the first known artificial hybrid of 2 animal species. They analyzed the genome of horse skeletons from a 4,500-year-old burial site in northern Syria. The study showed that the skeletons found there belonged to kungas, hybrids of female donkeys and male Syrian wild asses, or hemipes. The scientists said that large male kungas were used to pull the vehicles of the nobility. The fact is that domesticated horses were brought to Mesopotamia only about 4,000 years ago. So before that, people preferred to use larger and faster kungas rather than donkeys. Archaeologists suspected these animals resulted from crossbreeding, but evidence was lacking. A new study has provided evidence that they were hybrid animals. One of the researchers noted that breeding kung was indeed an example of early bioengineering. Medieval horses were tinier than ponies. A knight in shining armor riding a tall horse is a deeply rooted part of how popular culture depicts the Middle Ages. But it seems that the horses of that era were actually the size of ponies, much smaller than their modern descendants, according to the largest study of horse bones in history. The study, published in the international journal Archaeology, examined the size and shape of 1,964 bones from English horses dating from between 300 and 1,650 AD, found at 171 separate archaeological sites. The researchers compared these bones to modern horses to see how the animals changed over time. Horses from the Saxon and Norman periods averaged under 1.5 meters tall, which today would be considered pony-sized. During the Middle Ages, horses served various battle roles and were likely bred for specific tasks. Horses intended for displays, tournaments, or racing were taller, while smaller horses, called coursers and trotters, covered long distances during military campaigns. Horses have been used in war for thousands of years and continue to be used today. United States Special Operations Forces used horses in Afghanistan as recently as 2001. The Silver Scrolls of Ketef Hinnom. The Ketef Hinnom Archaeological Site is a complex of several rock-cut burial chambers located southwest of the old city of Jerusalem, on the road to Bethlehem. In 1979, archaeologists made an important discovery at this site. They found 2 silver plates rolled up like scrolls with inscriptions in ancient Hebrew. These scrolls are believed to have been used as amulets and date back to the 7th century before Common Era. The texts on these amulets contain the oldest surviving quotations from the Torah. The girl was afflicted with a medieval curse. Do you think it's possible in today's world to literally be transported to the Middle Ages? And I'm not talking about a reenactment festival, but about a truly terrifying phenomenon. In the Middle Ages, people suffered from a mysterious disease called St. Anthony's fire, also known as witches' convulsions. The symptoms were terrifying: convulsions, bloody vomiting, psychosis, and sometimes gangrene. Infected people were often believed to be possessed by demons. In reality, the cause was simple: ergot poisoning, a parasitic fungus that infects rye. Bread made from contaminated grain caused mass epidemics throughout Europe and even in Russia. The last major case was recorded in 1951 in France, when 250 people fell ill and 4 died. It seemed the disease was a thing of the past. But recently, an American girl felt a severe burning sensation in her legs. The doctors were puzzled. The tissues in her limbs began to die, and only after long research did they find out that she had been poisoned by ergot, catching a real greeting from the Middle Ages. Modern technology has almost eliminated such cases, but as we can see, history can repeat itself. A ball of yarn. 3. 3,000-year-old yarn balls were discovered during the excavation of the British Pompeii, an ancient Bronze Age settlement in England. They were discovered in underground houses built on marshy ground. One of the balls was charred, which raises the question of how it could withstand fire without being damaged. The yarn's composition remains unknown because the artifacts are fragile. This uncertainty leads to scientific debates, particularly over whether the material is wool or plant fibers. It is assumed that the discovered balls could have been made from flax or nettle. All this suggests that the history of knitting and the use of textile materials in ancient times remains little studied and full of mysteries. Archaeologists are still trying to determine the significance of these wooden textile items, many of which may have been lost or damaged as a result of the fire that destroyed the settlement. This makes the task of reconstructing the historical context even more difficult. The oldest shipyard in the world. On Dana Island near Turkey's Mersin province, ruins of the oldest giant shipyard have been found. Abundant iron ore and cedar made this Cilician island a major trade and political center since the Bronze Age. The site has 296 slipways from various eras, suggesting up to 300 warships could be built simultaneously. Ship maintenance and repairs were also carried out here. Most of the slipways are carved into the rock and are classified according to their unique features. Some of them have only partially survived due to destruction, and behind them, structures possibly intended for service boats have been discovered. Some of the slipways collapsed into the sea because of earthquakes. A room with a grim secret. In Yorkshire, there is an ancient Tudor-era mansion. During restoration work, something absolutely astonishing was discovered there. The mansion's oldest section was built in the 12th century as a small stone house owned by the Scott family. In the 1200s, the Calverley family acquired the building and started its reconstruction. The mansion was their family estate up until the 18th century. Later, the building was divided into separate houses, and in the 19th century, 10 families lived there. At the end of the last century, the mansion was purchased by the Landmark Trust Company, which still owns it and takes care of its preservation to this day. Recently, scheduled restoration work was carried out, and it was expected that after the repairs, several families would be able to move into the house. Old plaster was removed from behind the fireplace to check whether the main wooden joints were intact. As they gradually removed the layers, the specialists discovered an opening that led them to a room that was not marked on the modern plans. The walls of the room were covered with plaster. Analysis showed it dated to the 17th century when the Calverley family owned the mansion. The restorers saw red, brown, and green stains, which they initially mistook for natural signs of aging, mold, and decay. Imagine their surprise when they removed the plaster and realized that it had been hiding incredibly beautiful frescoes. The room's walls featured birds, griffins, and tiny people in hats. The secret room's paintings are exact copies of frescoes from Nero's Golden House in Rome. They also added an English touch to the ornamentation. For example, roses typical of the Tudor era. Experts say that they managed to discover the most intricate wall painting of that period. It's unclear who painted the room or why, especially in such an unusual style for that era. Landmark Trust managers haven't decided their next steps, since the discovery is worth a fortune. In 1605, a tragedy occurred here. Walter came from a wealthy family and entered into marriage at his parents' request. Over the years, his drinking worsened, seriously impacting his mind. In angry outbursts, he broke things, yelled, and mistreated his family. During one of these fits, he committed a terrible crime and attacked his children, who died instantly. His wife, despite serious injuries, managed to escape. At the trial, Walter Calverley was sentenced to death. Ramses the Great and the Gold of the Pharaohs. Ramses the Great and the Gold of the Pharaohs is a completely new multi-sensory museum that will allow guests to see the life and achievements of Ramses II, better known as Ramses the Great. Visitors will come face to face with more than 181 priceless artifacts, including Egyptian treasures and one-of-a-kind relics, many of which represent the most outstanding pharaoh himself. On this exciting journey, visitors discover a well-preserved collection of artifacts, sarcophagi, animal mummies, magnificent jewelry, royal masks, exquisite amulets, and ornate golden tomb treasures. showcasing Egyptian artists' superb craftsmanship. As they walk among real colossal statues, visitors will explore many of the world's most valuable treasures and learn the most important stories about Ramses and life in Egypt, including Ramses' military victories, featuring a dynamic multimedia recreation of Ramses' triumph at the Battle of Kadesh, perhaps the largest chariot battle ever fought. I believe this museum should be visited by everyone who is interested in archaeology, and especially in ancient Egypt. He was buried together with a woman. Today we have something special for you, an amazing archaeological discovery straight from the heart of China. Imagine that archaeologists have unearthed a very old and complex horse saddle. This is possibly the oldest saddle ever found. The discovery was made in the distant Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China, in the arid Turpan Basin. It was found in the grave of a woman at the Yanghai Cemetery. She was probably a rider because the saddle was placed beneath her, as if she were sitting on it. The saddle stayed intact for nearly 2,700 years due to the desert's dry climate. It was made from 2 cushions of cowhide, filled with a mixture of straw, deer hair, and camel wool. Even for us in the 21st century, that sounds comfortable, doesn't it? Analysis showed that the saddle was made sometime between 724 and 396 before Christ, which makes it possibly the oldest saddle in history. This matters because we previously believed the Scythians, nomadic people from the Eurasian steppes, made the first saddles. Archaeologists from the University of Zurich, Patrick Wertmann, said that this discovery could move the beginning of saddle production history to a new date. It is possible that the woman they found and the saddle belonged to the Subeshi culture, which lived in this region about 3,000 years ago. Now we know that domesticated horses appeared about 6,000 years ago, but at first they were used for milk and meat. Modern horseback riding likely started about 1,000 years later. The first riders used simple mats that were tied to the horse's back, as shown on Assyrian reliefs. And the oldest real saddle that we know of may have been created in Central Asia around the middle of the first millennium before Christ. Researchers suggest that the Subeshi culture may have had contact with the Scythians, since they had similar weapons and clothing. While the Scythians were nomads, the Subeshi people most likely practiced animal husbandry in the Turfan Basin, an unusual feature in dinosaurs. Scientists found the first fossils of the duck-billed dinosaur, Anabia odysseus, in Morocco. Anabia means foreigner in Arabic. The discovery puzzled specialists because, until now, such species had only been found in Europe. During the dinosaur era, the continents were divided by a deep ocean, so researchers wanted to discover how they reached Africa. Anabia odysseus lived at the end of the Cretaceous, 66 million years ago. These dinosaurs fed on plants, but compared to other duck-billed relatives, they were small in size, about 3 meters long. Scientists expressed surprise at the African discovery, calling it like finding a kangaroo in Scotland. Experts analyzed the species' teeth and jaw bones, concluding it was part of the Lambeosaurinae duck-billed dinosaur subfamily. Scientists think they had large bony crests on their heads. At first, they lived in North America, then spread to Asia and Europe, but their fossils have never been found in Africa. Researchers claim that dinosaurs couldn't reach the continent by land. According to scientists, the animal must have gotten there by water. It is assumed that members of this species were good swimmers, with strong legs and tails. In addition, their remains have been found in river deposits and sea cliffs, which suggests that they could move through water. A rare giant book. Before you lies one of 12 massive 18th century Spanish books, nearly a meter long. These books were created for religious ceremonies and contain detailed scripts of worship services. Leather binding, wooden covers, and animal skin pages made the book both durable and a symbol of the church's grandeur. Such manuscripts were intended for use in temples, where clergy and the choir could read the text from a distance. That's why the letters are so large. Today, this rarity is kept at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. Restoration scientists are carefully studying it, trying to preserve it in its original form. These books are a real window into the past, allowing us to see what liturgical texts looked like and what the attitude toward writing was in the era of colonial Latin America. an unknown structure from prehistoric times. In France, archaeologists discovered a unique ancient structure consisting of 3 circular constructions, which still remain a mystery to scientists. The discovery was made in Marlienne near Dijon before the expansion of the local quarry. The work, conducted by the French National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research, uncovered artifacts from the Neolithic to early Iron Age across 60,000 square meters. A monument with 3 enclosures was also found, with the central one shaped like a horseshoe. Scientists suggest that this structure may have been used during the Neolithic period, which began about 7,000 years ago. Radiocarbon analysis is underway to determine the exact date. Artifacts related to the Bell Beaker culture have been found near the structure, including flint arrowheads and a copper dagger. Pyrite, used for making fire, was found on one of the armbands, which suggests a possible burial site, although this hypothesis has not yet been confirmed. In addition, a burial with 5 chambers was found, dating from 1,500 to 1,300 before Christ, including a funerary hearth and an amber necklace. At a distance of 400 meters from the main find, Iron Age cremation ashes containing jewelry were discovered. Mummified crocodiles. In a new study published this year in Public Library of Science, one scientist from Belgium and Spain described an unusual method of crocodile mummification in the Egyptian village of Kubit el-Hawa. Around the 5th century before Christ, crocodiles held a special place in Egyptian culture. They were associated with the deity Sobek, served as a source of food, and their parts were used in medicine. Mummified crocodiles are often found during excavations, but are rarely analyzed in detail. This time, the researchers decided to conduct such an analysis on 10 mummies from Kubit el-Hawa. Researchers found the mummies are 2 crocodile species, ranging from 1.5 to 3.5 meters long. A distinctive feature of these mummies is the absence of resin or bitumen in their composition, which indicates a process of drying in hot sand before burial. This method was common before the Ptolemaic era, when resin use became widespread. In some mummies, pieces of linen and palm leaves were found, which were used after the bodies had dried. Toilet in ancient times. The find is about 2,700 years old and very rare. It's an unusual private home toilet for that era. So apparently public toilets already existed back then. Especially many of them have been preserved from later times, during the period of Roman rule. But to have one at home in a separate little room, that was real luxury. The toilet was made of limestone and was located on a large, ancient, wealthy estate overlooking the area that is now known as the Old City in Jerusalem. It is reported that sitting on this thing was comfortable. There was a spacious cesspit dug underneath. By the way, archaeologists really love these kinds of pits. I'm not joking at all. In Pompeii and Herculaneum, a lot of interesting things were found in such pits, which helped to better understand the lives of the people who lived there. First of all, there were food remains or things that used to be food. This can be studied, and conclusions can be drawn about their diet. In general, the dream of almost any ambitious and curious archaeologist is to get access to such a pit and dig around in it thoroughly. Wealthy people have always sought beautiful living, even today. A golden toilet symbolizes luxury. According to the archaeologists who made the discovery, only a few of these toilets have been found so far. The ruins of the mansion were discovered during the construction of a tourist center. Tunnels where giant sloths lived. I suggest you take a look at real evidence of the megafauna that once called South America home. The entire south of Brazil is riddled with tunnels, some of them over 50 meters long, and a person can easily walk through them. These places were found less than 20 years ago and remain largely unstudied. You may have heard of underground cities, but what about huge tunnels dug by giant sloths thousands of years ago? They are found all over southern Brazil, and these tunnels are absolutely unique. Local scientists call them paleotunnels, which literally translates as ancient burrow. These burrows really are ancient, since they appeared at least 12 to 15,000 years ago, or maybe even earlier. That was when South America's megafauna went extinct. These tunnels were accidentally discovered in the early 2000s. Geologist Genrich Frank from the University of Rio Grande do Sul noticed a strange hole at a construction site and returned days later with equipment. In front of him was a small tunnel about 5 meters long, and it was very strange. The geologist examined it carefully from the inside, and on the ceiling he noticed marks from huge claws. Frank understood that no force of nature, no natural phenomenon, could create a cave with such characteristics. Therefore, it was logical, though quite wild, to assume that this tunnel was dug by some large animal. Just imagine how wild the imagination of the people of South America can get, since this continent is inhabited by simply countless species of animals. Well, of course, no modern creature known to science is capable of digging such a burrow, so Frank concluded that this was the work of some ancient beast. Soon, similar tunnels were discovered in other parts of Brazil. Now hundreds of such shelters are known. Some of them stretch up to 60 meters in length and are about 1 meter 80 in height. It is believed that they were created by ancient giant sloths, Megatherium. They were true giants and weighed about 4 tons. Meanwhile, the sloths walked on their hind legs and stood about 6 meters tall, twice the height of a modern elephant. Besides sloths, such burrows could also have been built by glyptodons, another group of giants from the past, ancestors of modern armadillos, but they were several times smaller, about 2 tons. Scientists think sloths built the largest tunnels, while glyptodons dug the smaller burrows. Dinosaurs lived long ago, and we have their bones and fossilized eggs, but we don't know what their homes were like. Scientists often rely on assumptions and theories, but with giant sloth armadillos, it's different. Their homes still exist in the 21st century. A tooth that is 10 million years old. German scientists worry their discovery could force the world to rewrite human history. We're talking about a tooth that was found near the German commune of Eppelsheim. Previously, researchers had only found such a discovery in Ethiopia. The teeth were so similar that they spent over a year rechecking the remains dating to avoid hasty conclusions. The age of the most recently discovered tooth is almost 10 million years. The remains of Jesus' brother. A 2,000-year-old ossuary was discovered in Israel with the inscription, James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. This sparked fierce debates. It is possible that the box held the remains of James the Just, the first bishop of Jerusalem, and the brother of Jesus. Today, this artifact is displayed in Atlanta with 350 ancient relics from Christ's era, though its authenticity is still questioned. Collector Oded Golan, owner of the ossuary, was accused of forging the inscription by adding brother of Jesus. But after years of legal proceedings, the charges were dropped, although the judge clarified that this does not prove the authenticity of the artifact. If authentic, the ossuary would be the earliest physical evidence of Jesus. Jews in the first century stored bones in limestone boxes, so finding an ossuary like this isn't surprising. In 2017, another artifact related to him was found, an ancient text called the First Apocalypse of James. It says that Jesus gave his brother secret knowledge, including predictions of his death. This text was banned because it did not conform to the canonical New Testament. A rare Bronze Age tool. While excavating for a gas pipeline in Este, northern Italy, archaeologists found a 3,300-year-old wooden yoke from the late Bronze Age. This area is famous for its archaeological finds, but Bronze Age settlements had not been discovered here before. The yoke, which was used to fasten to the necks of oxen with straps, offers a glimpse into the distant past, showing the size of the cattle at that time. They were smaller than modern ones. The trace of repair on the yoke is interesting, indicating that in ancient times it was fixed after breaking. The swampy terrain during the Bronze Age contributed to the preservation of wooden objects, as people built their homes on stilts above the water. This created conditions for the long-term conservation of organic materials. The finds are being carefully studied at the Roman Institute of Restoration. Although the discovery of the yoke is an important step, archaeologists continue their research, expecting new discoveries. This artifact shows how much is still hidden in the ground and reminds us that human history is made up of many fragments of a bigger picture. A house that is 100 years old. People will go almost anywhere to survive. Very often, necessity pushes people to do truly strange things, like building a house on a sheer cliff. Who could have built such a bizarre structure? When exactly did it appear? And most importantly, who needed it and why? If today it's clearly standing empty. The mysterious house on the cliff sits in the Italian Alps at 2,743 meters above sea level in a man-made niche. The unique structure is part of the Via Ferrata Ivano di Bona mountain road, featuring rope bridges, stone staircases, and small huts. The history of the world's most isolated and unusual building remains very unclear. There is no precise information about it, only conflicting accounts from local residents. If we put together all the least contradictory information about the structure, the following becomes known. Most likely, the hut was built by Italian mountain troops during World War I at the time of military operations against the Austro-Hungarian forces. Apparently, the house was built as a shelter for overnight stays, as well as a place to store food, water, medicine, and ammunition. Be that as it may, the hut has been almost empty for nearly 100 years. Inside, there is nothing except a slanted floor and a few wooden chairs, which, judging by their appearance, were brought into the hut in the niche relatively recently. By the way, getting inside is a real adventure. Only physically strong and resilient people can climb up here. There was once a rope ladder or possibly a bridge to the house. Today, the mysterious structure is one of the most popular pilgrimage sites among tourists and climbers. The Forgery Factory, the first archaeological replica factory in Egypt, aims to promote culture around the world. Dozens of designers, sculptors, artists, and workers in white coats were making replicas of ancient Egyptian artifacts at the first factory in Egypt and the Middle East, producing historical Egyptian antiquities copies. The company also creates replicas of Coptic, Islamic, and Greco-Roman antiquities. Production depends on the artistic and historical value of the original piece, as well as its popularity at the local and international levels. Located on 10,000 square meters in El Auber City's industrial zone in Qalyubia province, north of Cairo, the factory has large sections for design, printing, sculpture, painting, and more. Ahmed Hussein, sculpture department head, created a replica of King Tutankhamun's golden mask. Replicas are produced here on a 1-to-1 scale as identical models. Most of the artists at the factory come from the Supreme Council of Antiquities of the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. The oldest structures in the United Arab Emirates have been found. The ruins discovered by archaeologists are 500 years older than the oldest structures previously known in the United Arab Emirates. Archaeologists studying the heritage of the United Arab Emirates continue to add new chapters to the history of this land. On Gaga Island, located west of the city of Abu Dhabi, scientists found stone structures and artifacts created 8,500 years ago. The previous earliest structures in the United Arab Emirates were the ruins on Marawa Island, which are 500 years newer. Here, in layers dating back 5,800 to 5,600 years, a pearl was found, which indicates an established practice of trade and exchange. Based on these and a number of other discoveries, it was believed that the first settlements in this area were established during the Neolithic period with the development of maritime trade routes. The existence of an 8,500-year-old structure proves that people lived here even earlier. The Abu Dhabi Islands were a fertile coastline, and the emergence of trade with distant countries only strengthened their prosperity. The discovered building consists of simple round rooms with walls made of stone, and their full height has not been determined. Stones laid to a height of about 1 meter have survived to this day, and people live there year-round. Numerous artifacts testify to this, including skillfully crafted stone arrowheads that were used for hunting. The inhabitants also enjoyed the rich gifts of the sea. How long this settlement existed has not yet been determined, but even after it was abandoned, it was not forgotten. Almost 5,000 years ago, a person was buried in the ruins. This is one of the few burials from this period known on the Abu Dhabi Islands. A dress made of beads. In front of you is one of the rarest ancient Egyptian garments, a dress made of beads, dating to approximately 2550 before Christ, the era of the 4th dynasty. This was the time when the Great Pyramids were being built, and similar outfits were worn by noble women, possibly even priestesses. The dress features a mesh made from hundreds of small faience beads, resembling scales or fish skin. It was worn over a thin linen tunic, which made the look not only elegant, but also symbolically significant. The Egyptians believed that such clothing could grant protection and the favor of the gods. It's amazing that after thousands of years, the dress has been preserved in this condition. This is not just a piece of clothing, but an artifact that gives us insight into the fashion, traditions, and aesthetics of the ancient Egyptian elite. Today it is kept in a museum and is one of the most outstanding examples of ancient textile art. A shark victim from ancient Japan. Shark attacks on humans don't happen very often, unless you count the movies, and there are even fewer historical records of such incidents. The earliest documented case dates back to around the year 1000 AD, but it seems scientists have found an unfortunate victim much older than that. An international research team found that a man buried in Japan's Tsukumo burial ground was killed by a shark attack over 3,000 years ago. The Tsukumo burial ground dates back to the Jomon period. This is a general term for the archaeological structure of the ceramic Neolithic era of the Japanese islands, a time of hunter-gatherers who also engaged in fishing. The remains labeled number 24, which are being discussed, were dated by radiocarbon analysis to between 1370 and 1010 before Common Era, that is, to the late Jomon period. The man was buried bent, with his own left leg placed on his body, foot toward his head. His skeleton lacked the right leg and left hand. Researchers found at least 790 perimortem bone injuries typical of a shark attack. The exact shark species couldn't be determined, but it was likely a tiger or great white shark. Mangazia. That was the name of the first Russian Arctic city, founded in 1607 on the Taz River in Siberia. It was mainly created to control the Mangazia sea route linking the White Sea and Ob River regions. Mangazia brought flour, bread, salt, and goods into Siberia, exporting large amounts of furs. Mangazia was so wealthy it inspired legends, earning the nickname City of Boiling Gold. However, it lasted less than a century before being abandoned. This was mainly due to changes in Siberian colonization routes and the depletion of local fur resources. Mangazia lost its appeal to citizens, but not to archaeologists. Kushelevsky conducted the first excavations here in 1862. They revealed that Mangazia had the classic ancient Russian city layout: the city, Kremlin, and Posad. Jade cicada. Before you is a jade cicada from the Western Zhou dynasty. More than an ornament, it held deep symbolism. Cicadas represented rebirth and immortality in Chinese culture, while jade symbolized eternity. Such a figurine might be put in the mouth of the deceased before burial, believed to aid the soul's passage into the afterlife and rebirth. The red paint found on the artifact is significant, as red symbolized protection and good luck. The finest carvings showcase the great skill of ancient Chinese craftsmen. Pay attention to the eyes, the folded paws, and the patterns that give the figurine an almost mystical appearance. Such items were part of rituals and reflected the religious beliefs of people of that era. A living doll? In 1877, Thomas Edison invented a unique talking doll, one of his most extraordinary creations. This doll, under 2 kilograms with a porcelain head and wooden limbs, hid a miniature phonograph that played sound when the handle turned. Instead of delighting people, its odd feature made many uneasy. Edison introduced it as the latest electrical novelty, able to speak phrases or sing songs. Thanks to the phonograph built into its body, a team of women was brought in to record various phrases and melodies. But unfortunately, the dolls turned out to be less durable than expected and couldn't withstand active children's play, which often led to the mechanism breaking. In 1889, Edison faced complaints about the fragility of the wax cylinders used, which confirmed the need to improve the design to increase its reliability. Nevertheless, the production turned out to be unprofitable, and by 1890 the costs exceeded $50,000, which forced the Edison phonograph toy manufacturing company to stop making these dolls. Edison's failure in this area did not affect public opinion in any way, since even with the high cost of the dolls, many people would have preferred to spend their money on other toys. Interestingly, the frightening image of the talking doll may have inspired many creepypasta horror stories, where sinister dolls became the main characters. A major archaeological discovery. In terms of the number of antiquities per unit area, hardly any other country can compete with Turkey, since the lands of modern Turkey once included many ancient states of the Mediterranean basin. Among such antiquities, I especially want to highlight the area near Ephesus, where the ancient city of Magnesia is located. It is about this city, or more precisely about the most spectacular find of the archaeologists, that I will tell you. Excavations have shown that in its layout, Magnesia on the Meander, that's the name of the river, is similar to other Hellenistic cities on the western coast of Asia Minor. But it had one unique feature: the stadium at the foot of the hill. The photo shows the stadium before and after excavation. In the first photo, it looks like some kind of quarry, where, for example, clay or sand was extracted. And indeed, the majestic stadium, buried under soil for many centuries and made of marble, looks more like a huge ravine or an old, overgrown mining quarry. But after the archaeologists cleared it, the scale of this structure became visible. The exact date when the stadium was built is unknown, but written sources tell us that since the year 220 AD, the Magnesian Games dedicated to the goddess Artemis were held there. Most likely the stadium was built at the same time as the city itself, but its lifespan, like that of the entire city, was short. In the mid-4th century, the Meander River changed course, making the area around Magnesia swampy and causing residents to relocate. They began to move to Aydin Tralles and Selçuk, which were located near Ephesus, which by that time had already fallen into decline and been abandoned. Excavations continue in Magnesia. Sea dragon in the United Kingdom. Temnodontosaurus trigonodon ichthyosaurs lived in the ocean 180 million years ago. The fossil of a 10-meter ichthyosaur was found in the United Kingdom. The marine reptile became the largest dinosaur skeleton ever found in the country. Paleontologist Dean Lomax wrote about this on his Instagram page. The scientist also released a photo of the ancient giant sea dragon skeleton, discovered near a reservoir in Rutland, England, according to the British Broadcasting Corporation. The outline of the ichthyosaur was noticed during a scheduled draining of the island. It took 3 weeks to excavate the fossil. The skeleton measures 10 meters. Ichthyosaurs appeared about 250 million years ago and went extinct around 90 million years ago. These marine reptiles could grow up to 25 meters long. The remains discovered in Rutland waters were classified as a separate species, Temnodontosaurus trigonodon. A metal rod. How can we explain this mysterious artifact? Inside a stone found in the Mazong Mountains of China, collector Jilling Wang discovered a threaded metal rod resembling a screw. But what's most strange is that the solid rock had formed around it, suggesting that the find could be millions of years old. Some have suggested that it's a meteorite with an alien artifact inside. Others believe it's an ancient man-made object that, for unknown reasons, ended up in the earth and became fossilized. Skeptics argue it's just a rare, natural formation, and the screw is actually a fossilized marine organism. Interestingly, similar discoveries have been made worldwide. Is this coincidence or proof of ancient, unknown technology? For now, this artifact remains one of the most mysterious archaeological puzzles. A city from the era of the legendary King Hammurabi. In Tel Mohammed, Iraq, an international team of archaeologists discovered the remains of an ancient fortress. These ruins date back to the era of Hammurabi, the famous Babylonian ruler who became renowned for his code of laws. The new findings indicate that the city was abandoned after the fall of Babylon, which was conquered by the Hittite king Mursili I in 1595 before Christ. This conclusion is supported by historical texts found at the excavation site. Researchers focused on studying the northeastern part of the city, where, following descriptions from ancient texts, they discovered remains of a fortress wall, a canal, and a potential port on the Tigris River. Scientists believe that the canal may have been part of a complex sewage system created using terracotta pipes for rapid drainage. Archaeologists also discovered a staircase leading to a high terrace where a tower once stood, and a nearby cistern that was originally used for collecting water but was later converted into a drainage system. Within the city walls, they found a structure associated with grain processing and bread making. Of particular interest are the ovens that were used for liquefying bitumen and a sacred bathroom with an altar. Nearby were tombs tied to the ancestor cult, referred to as kispu in ancient texts. Among other finds are cylindrical seals for administrative purposes, decorated with images from that era, and votive terracotta objects from the second millennium before Christ. He gave the ancient treasure to the state. The media regularly receives reports about various treasure finds all over the world. Most treasures are found abroad, for example in Rome or in the capital of Russia, as well as in areas where nomadic peoples once traveled, where ancient states existed that were wiped off the face of the earth over time, or during invasions aimed at conquest. One of the unique discoveries was found in Zhytomyr Oblast, which is in Ukraine. An ordinary local resident discovered a hoard of old coins. He was digging sand near the river. A man named Serhiy Komar dug up coins that are of special importance to Ukraine. Preliminary data shows they are over 1,000 years old and were used in daily life during Kievan Rus. Professional archaeologists hadn't found even a few silver coins in a century, yet here was such luck. Now, the village of Horodnitsia is very famous, whereas before it was just a town on the map. The find received an unusual name, the Horodnitsia treasure. It is worth noting that a similar hoard had already been discovered in this area, but that time it contained rare Roman coins. Historians were surprised that the man turned out to be an honest person. All the treasure that he managed to extract from the sandy depths he gladly handed over to the state, although he could have easily sold it on the black market, since the government will provide a reward equal to 20% of the actual value of the hoard. These coins are safe now, protected by historians and archaeologists. As for the coins themselves, out of 32 silver coins, 27 are decorated with an engraved trident. This very symbol was the emblem of Volodymyr the Great during the times of Kievan Rus. Historians think minting continued until 1015, with the last 5 coins dated 1015, 1019. They feature Sviatopolk the Accursed's trident. He received this nickname for killing his own brothers. Neanderthals were more human than we realize. Dr. Rebecca Raggs Sykes, an archaeologist specializing in Neanderthals, relatives of modern humans who went extinct about 40,000 years ago, she highlighted an April Scientific Reports article on the discovery of 100,000-year-old Neanderthal traces on Spain's Pyrenean Peninsula coast. These aren't the first Neanderthal footprints found, but they're unique. A group of all ages, including very young children. It seems that they were gathering food at the edge of the lagoon. The variety of ages plays a key role here, and actually helps challenge the common assumption that Neanderthals foraged alone, with adults separating from the group to find food for the children. The discovery instead supports the theory that hunting and gathering could have been a family affair, involving the joint efforts of different generations. Some of the tracks belonging to children were grouped in a chaotic pattern, as if they were playing. The discovery adds a sense of humanity and personality to this recent human relative. Among the world's oldest Buddhist temples. Stone fragments from the 2nd century before Christ were found by Italian archaeologists, who discovered one of the oldest Buddhist temples in Barikat, Pakistan. The stone wall fragments and artifacts date to the late 2nd century before Christ. Italian specialists have been working in the Gandhara region since 1955, but major discoveries have only been made now. Barikat, where Italian scientists work today, is called Bazira, or Vajrasthana in Greek and Latin texts. Alexander the Great besieged this city. This place played an important role in managing all the agricultural lands of the Swat Valley, which, due to its microclimate, allows for harvesting grain or rice twice a year. For Alexander the Great, Barikat became a kind of granary that he used before continuing his campaign into India. Italian scientists discovered that the ancient temple in Barikat was cylindrical, 3 meters tall, and built on an apsidal podium during the Indo-Greek king Menander I's reign. An even older structure once stood at the site before the temple. Archaeologists also discovered fragments of inscriptions on pottery written in the Kharosthi script, as well as several coins. Scientists believe that throughout its long history, the temple in Barikot was repeatedly subjected to acts of vandalism, and it was finally abandoned at the beginning of the 3rd century AD, when the lower city was destroyed by an earthquake. Could these findings really be 300 million years old? From time to time, miners find strange artifacts in coal seams that apparently were created by intelligent beings. This raises uncomfortable questions for science because the age of these layers is estimated at 300 million years. How could objects that were clearly made by hand end up there? Back then, Earth was home only to giant insects and early reptiles. No humans, dinosaurs, or advanced technology. Still, discoveries keep surprising us. In 1912, an iron kettle was extracted from a coal seam in Oklahoma. And in 1851, a vase made of zinc and silver was discovered in Massachusetts, with the age of the rock being 534 million years. A gear rack-like metal rod made of aluminum with magnesium was found in Russia. Its origin is even more mysterious. Aluminum was only discovered in 1825, and the coal in which it was found is over 300 million years old. Scientists discovered the metal contained carbon, confirming its remarkable age. But if so, who created it? Some believe that these discoveries are traces of a vanished civilization that existed long before us, but was wiped from the face of the planet by a global cataclysm. Others suggest that the objects could have been left by aliens or even time travelers. Skeptics, in turn, are convinced that these are either hoaxes or mistakes in dating. Another theory suggests coal formed just a few thousand years ago due to deep gases and pressure, not millions of years ago. If so, the artifacts may not be as ancient after all. Cro-Magnon jewelry. Archaeologists discovered an ancient piece of jewelry in the Stynia cave in Poland, a pendant made from mammoth tusk. Radiocarbon analysis showed that the find is over 41,500 years old. This is the oldest piece of jewelry ever discovered in Eurasia. It dates back to when Cro-Magnon ancestors lived here, between 40 and 10,000 years ago. That is, it was made long before ancient people mastered agriculture and learned how to fish. The ornament was found in 2010, but its study results were just published. The ornament is an excellent testament to the culture of people who lived in the territory of modern Poland during the late Paleolithic era. In addition, it shows that people at that time already had tools and were very skilled at using them. After all, the thickness of the pendant is only 3.7 millimeters. Moreover, it has holes and even engraved patterns on it. A detailed description of the ancient pendant was published in scientific reports. The study's authors say the pendant's pattern consists of over 50 notches. In addition, the item contains 2 through holes. The notches may be decorative and also convey information, such as the owner's number of successful hunts, lunar or solar cycles, and more. The find is very important for understanding the culture of people from this period. Until recently, scientists were sure that visual art, religion, and other manifestations of culture appeared much later, after ancient people began to lead a settled way of life. However, this ornament disproves that assumption, as do some other finds discovered recently in Europe and Asia. The Madaba Map. The Madaba Map, found in the mosaic floor of the Byzantine Church of St. George in Madaba, Jordan, is the oldest surviving map of the Holy Land, especially Jerusalem. The map was discovered during renovations in the church in 1884 and is dated somewhere between 560 and 565 AD. Although the map originally depicted much of the Middle East from southern Syria to central Egypt, most of the mosaic map had already been destroyed when it was first discovered. However, the part of the map showing Jerusalem remained intact, including the oval-shaped fortified city with 6 gates, 21 towers, and several dozen buildings and structures. Visitors to Madaba can see the map in person. A copy of the ancient map is also kept at the Archaeological Institute of the University of Göttingen in Germany. Gold jewelry. In front of you are exquisite gold earrings created in the 1st century before Christ during the Satavahana dynasty in the Andhra Pradesh region of India. These pieces showcase the exceptional skill of ancient goldsmiths using advanced granulation and embossing. The jewelry is large, curved, and richly adorned. Animal images like horses and lions, symbols of strength, power, and protection in Indian culture, are visible. The detailing is amazing. Each bead and line is crafted with great precision. Such earrings were worn by noble women and possibly even members of the royal family. Today, these artifacts are an invaluable legacy of ancient Indian jewelry art. Workshops for human mummification. And now we will find ourselves in Egypt, where 2 ancient workshops were recently discovered. What was produced there, you may ask? Mummies. So imagine we are in Saqqara, a necropolis near Cairo. Researchers discovered 2 workshops, one for embalming humans, the other for animals. The workshops are like a labyrinth of specialized rooms, each playing its own role in the mummification process. Here is a stone bed where the body is laid, and here are the tools and materials for mummification. It's fascinating, isn't it? 5 stone beds were found in the animal workshop, and much larger ones in the human workshop. It's easy to imagine these beds were used to lay out the deceased. After the organs were removed from the body, it was cleaned and filled with embalming fluids. Special wooden sticks were used to mix the embalming fluids, and clay pots stored the remaining salt and black resin inside. During the excavations, 2 more tombs were found. The first belonged to Nekisut Ba, a chief scribe and priest of the god Horus from the Old Kingdom, who lived around 2400 before Christ. The second belonged to the priest of the 18th dynasty, Menkaperu, who died around the 14th century before Christ. The last photographs of extinct animals. The Red Book is often mentioned as a symbol of protecting endangered species, but few people know about the existence of the Black Book, a sad catalog of animals and plants lost forever. This document serves as a bitter reminder that over the past 5 centuries, we have lost 844 species. Today I want to talk about some animals that went extinct because of humans in the last century, whose last individuals were captured in photos or videos. The Barbary lion, which lived in North Africa, disappeared in the 1920s. Huge and powerful, with a majestic mane, this lion was exterminated because it was harmful to livestock, especially after the appearance of firearms. The last lion was killed in 1922. The Tasmanian tiger, or thylacine, lived in Australia and New Guinea and was later driven to Tasmania by dingoes. Farmers began shooting them when thylacine started attacking livestock. In 1936, the last thylacine died in a zoo, but its appearance has been preserved on video. The Bali tiger, which lived on the island of Bali, was one of the smallest tigers. Hunting of these tigers began in the 1910s, and in 1937 the last female was killed, which led to the extinction of the species. The Mexican grizzly, native to Mexico and the United States, was last seen in 1960. Despite the ban on hunting these bears, in 1959 they disappeared due to hunting and loss of habitat. These stories are just a small part of the tragic fate of animals that disappeared because of human activity. There are legends that modern humans encountered living mammoths and saber-toothed tigers, and supposedly these photographs confirm their recent existence. 120 horse skeletons. Archaeologists in China have found the ruins of Yaohewani, an ancient Bronze Age fortress city. This city, which once served as an important political and cultural hub, concealed palaces, sacrificial pits, moats, and many other structures. In particular, scientists discovered 6 special pits where they found horse skeletons, carefully laid out in layers. Mysteriously, some of these skeletons had been dismembered. Research suggests the animals were probably dismembered before burial. Around 120 horse skeletons, including foals, were found. This practice indicates the high status and prosperity of the city at that time, highlighting the importance of horses in this region. Researchers also came across a bronze casting site from the Western Zhou period, where they found remnants of a specific clay mixture used to create various molds and building foundations. Among other findings are numerous artifacts, ceramic items, stone ornaments, lacquerware, as well as celadon vessels, and bones with carved symbols resembling Chinese characters. A rare board game that is 4,000 years old. During the excavation of the settlement, archaeologists discovered a Bronze Age board game that is 4,000 years old. The board game was discovered by a team from the Polish Center of Mediterranean Archaeology at the University of Warsaw and the Ministry of Heritage and Tourism of the Sultanate of Oman. The team has studied this area since 2015, and the Jumeirah Valley region is rich in archaeological finds. Evidence of settlements dating from 4,300 to 4,000 before Christ was discovered, as well as later remains from 1,100 to 600 before Christ. Recently, archaeologists made several discoveries, including evidence of large, unexplained towers up to 20 meters in diameter and proof of copperworking. But the most unexpected discovery was a game board made of stone with markings and cup holes. While the game's workings aren't explained, ancient board games are known to have entertained people thousands of years ago. According to the Metropolitan Museum in New York, one board game called Senet was very popular in ancient Egypt, and it was played by queens such as Nefertari, as well as by less wealthy members of the population. It consisted of a grid of 30 squares, and players aimed to move their pieces through to the last square. Moves were decided by throwing a stick or die, and players could block opponents or send their own pieces back. 70,000 years ago, humans nearly went extinct. Homo sapiens as a species was on the brink of extinction about 70,000 years ago, according to a recent genetic study. Scientists think there was a time when only about 2,000 people remained on Earth. This means that for a fairly long period of time, humans were essentially an endangered species, easy prey for diseases, natural disasters, and conflicts. If just one of these factors had opposed Homo sapiens at that time, we wouldn't exist today. In addition, as a result of the same genetic experiment described in the American Journal of Human Genetics, researchers concluded that humans first left Africa at about the same time, 70,000 years ago. Unlike their closest relatives, chimpanzees, all humans have almost identical DNA. Moreover, even within a single group of chimpanzees, individual members have more differences in their DNA structure than all 6 billion people currently living on Earth. The British Broadcasting Corporation reports that scientists from Stanford University and the Russian Academy of Sciences compared 377 microsatellite markers in DNA from 52 regions worldwide. A close relationship was found between two generations of African hunter-gatherers, the Mbuti Pygmies in the Congo Basin and the Khoisan Bushmen in Botswana. Researchers think the Mbuti and Khoisan form the oldest branch of modern humans studied. The small DNA difference among modern humans shows that humanity nearly went extinct in the last 100,000 years. All humans today descend from a small group that survived then, likely never numbering more than 2,000 during that critical period. A brewery from the time of the first rulers of Egypt. Archaeologists have discovered the oldest brewery in the world, located in the necropolis of Abydos, Egypt. This discovery reveals early brewing technologies and shows how resources were managed during pyramid construction. The complex consists of 8 massive installations up to 20 meters long, each containing 2 rows of 40 vessels that were used to heat a mixture of grain and water. A classic beer brewing process. Scientists date the brewery to the era of Pharaoh Narmer, who is considered the founder of the first dynasty. Dr. Adams, who led the research, called this discovery an industrial-scale production and noted that it demonstrates the high level of labor organization in ancient Egypt. The ability to manage large-scale resource distribution and organize the workforce allowed the Egyptians to build grand structures, including the pyramids. Beer also played a key role in rituals. The large-scale production in Abydos indicates its use in sacrifices, ceremonies, and rituals, which confirms its significance in the development of Egyptian royal power. Actual fragments of the Book of the Dead. In the 19th century, Sir Thomas Phillips, a British collector, dreamed of owning every book on the planet. He gathered 60,000 manuscripts and 50,000 books, including 19 Book of the Dead fragments. For many years, his heirs plundered and sold off the library at auctions. In the 1970s, these relics passed to Hans Kraus, a well-known book dealer from New York. In 1983, Kraus and his wife gave the fragments to the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, where they stayed hidden for years. Only recently did the museum display 7 of these artifacts to the public. The Book of the Dead is not an ordinary book. It is a collection of 200 prayers and spells intended to help the souls of the deceased on their journey through the afterlife. It was a kind of ancient guidebook for the soul. Despite its name, the ancient Egyptians paid more attention to living life, trying to overcome their fears of death. The deceased aimed to reach a paradise like their native Egypt and unite with the deities, joining the eternal cycle of rebirth. Only the upper classes of society could afford to have a Book of the Dead with personalized spells. At the exhibition, visitors could see scrolls that belonged to temple priests named Aset and Ankheseneset, as well as strips of linen with spells for mummification. Special attention is given to the Hall of Judgment scene, where scales determine the deceased's fate. A light heart leads to paradise. A heavy heart brings eternal oblivion. A pair of colossal sphinxes. In Egypt, a joint archaeological mission led by Kurig Saruzian during excavations in the ancient city of Luxor discovered a large collection of huge pieces of limestone, including 2 colossal sphinxes. The joint German-Egyptian mission was carrying out archaeological work in the temple of Pharaoh Menhotep III. As a result, they discovered a large collection of huge limestone blocks. Mustafa Vaziri, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, said the finds included 2 limestone pieces and colossi depicting Amenhotep III. They are shaped like sphinxes, with the pharaoh's head wearing the Nemes headdress, a royal beard, and a wide collar. Both colossal sphinxes were found behind the gates of the 3rd pylon. They had not been noticed before because they were more than half buried beneath the surface. The restorers have already carefully cleaned the heads of the sphinxes. The other parts of the bodies and the paws have been placed in special molds, where they will be preserved for a while. The pedestals of the sphinxes were decorated with inscriptions, one of which has been partially deciphered. The preserved part of the text contains the ending of a royal name, which translates as Beloved of Amun-Ra. The mission also found 3 busts and 3 lower parts of the lioness goddess Sekhmet statue. A rotating Egyptian statue. There are rumors that a certain ancient Egyptian statue discovered in the museum mysteriously rotates on its pedestal at night. For a long time, it was thought to be cursed, but in reality, it was much simpler. Researchers stated that they have evidence of external vibrations that caused the 25-centimeter statue to rotate. Egyptologist from the museum, Kemble Price, suggested that the museum might have been struck by an ancient curse. However, Professor Brian Cox gave a more realistic explanation, believing that it was the differential friction between the stone of the statue and the glass shelf that caused vibrations, making the statue rotate. Expert Steve Gosling installed vibration sensors under the cabinet and detected vibrations caused by passers-by and the movement of cars on the busy road nearby. This phenomenon may attract new tourists to the museum to learn more about ancient Egypt. The spinning days of the Nebsenu statue are over. Now a membrane has been attached to the base of the statue and other exhibits to prevent movement in the future. The oldest family tree in the world. Analysis of ancient DNA from one of the best preserved Neolithic tombs in Britain, which is almost 6,000 years old, shows that 27 out of 35 people inside were members of 5 continuous generations of one large family. The Hazelton North Barrow in the Cotswold Hills in western England is one of the best preserved Neolithic tombs in Britain. Inside, in the 1980s, the remains of 35 people were discovered, all of whom are believed to have lived between 5,600 and 5,700 years ago. This was about 100 years after farming began in the area. A few years ago, specialists extracted genetic material from these buried remains. In a recent study, scientists used this genetic data to reconstruct the various relationships among all these people. The analysis showed that most of the people buried in the grave descended from 4 women who had children with the same man. These results suggest that polygamous marriages existed in the Neolithic society of that time. Researchers believe it is unlikely that this male ancestor had 4 wives, one after another. In fact, he probably had several wives at the same time. The results of this study also show that men were generally buried together with their father and brothers, which indicates patrilineal descent. In other words, those buried from later generations were connected to the first generation through their male relatives. Finally, the team identified 8 individuals who were not biological relatives of those listed in the family tree. However, 3 of them were women. Therefore, it is quite possible that they had a partner in the grave but no children. It is also possible that they had daughters, but they left the community as adults, which would explain their absence from the grave. Peruvian sea monster. Today, whales are seen as gentle and harmless, but the ancient whale that swam in present-day Peru 36 million years ago was quite different. The formidable animal, which is called a sea monster, reached 17 meters in length and had razor-sharp teeth which allowed it to feed on large animals, including tuna and sharks. This discovery is remarkable because of its excellent preservation. This animal was one of the largest predators of its time. The whale's skull with rows of long sharp teeth was found last year in the Ocucaje Desert in Peru. At that time, the Peruvian Sea was warm. Thanks to such fossils, we can reconstruct the history of the Peruvian Sea. Scientists believe that the skull belonged to Basilosaurus, a member of the aquatic cetacean family, whose descendants include whales, dolphins, and porpoises. Although Basilosaurus means royal lizard, it is not a reptile. However, according to scientists, the movements of its long body could really resemble those of a large snake. The predator Okukaki, as scientists named it, used strong teeth to eat tuna, sharks, and sardines. Researchers explained that when Basilosaurus died, its skull likely sank to the seafloor, where it quickly fossilized. The first cetaceans, such as Basilosaurus, evolved from land animals about 55 million years ago. By the late Eocene, from 56 to 34 million years ago, cetaceans had fully adapted to marine life. The Okukaki Desert is rich in fossils, which allow scientists to trace 42 million years of evolution. Barsuk discovered a hoard of Roman coins. Barsuk led archaeologists to a hoard of more than 200 Roman coins that had been hidden for centuries in a cave in Spain. An animal burrowed into a crack in La Cuesta Cave in Asturias, northwestern Spain, and uncovered coins later found by local resident Roberto Garcia. Garcia contacted archaeologists, including excavation director Alfonso Fanjul, who thinks the badger was searching for food or making a nest. When the archaeologists arrived at the site, they found a hole leading to the badger's nest, and the ground around it full of coins. The badger had dug up more than 90 coins. Then the team conducted an archaeological excavation, during which a total of 209 coins were discovered, dating from the 200s to the 400s AD. This dates to the late Roman period when barbarians like the Suebi reached the Iberian Peninsula. Refugees likely hid the coins while sheltering in the area. The coins are being cleaned and will be displayed at the Archaeological Museum of Asturias, the ancient necropolis of Persian kings. Before you is one of the most impressive bas-reliefs of ancient Persia, depicting the victory of Shahanshah Shapur I over the Roman Emperor Valerian. This monument is located in Nakshi Rostam, the ancient necropolis of Persian kings in Iran. On the bas-relief, Shapur I sits on a horse in ornate armor, while Philip the Arab, the Roman emperor who made peace with the Persians, kneels before him. But most importantly, he is holding the captured Valerian in his hands. This was the only time in history a Roman emperor was captured, after the defeat at the Battle of Edessa in 260. Valerian never returned. Some say he died in captivity or was killed. This bas-relief is more than a historical monument. It symbolizes the Persian Empire's greatness. It reminded everyone passing by that the Romans, the main power then, suffered a humiliating defeat. Tombs and a sarcophagus were discovered beneath Notre Dame. During Notre Dame's reconstruction after the 2019 fire, several tombs and a lead sarcophagus were found. This was reported by The Guardian, citing the French Ministry of Culture. It is believed that the sarcophagus was made for a high-ranking official in the 1300s, and apparently it was deformed by the weight of the earth and stones. To look inside it, a team of experts used a mini endoscopic camera. You can see bits of fabric, hair, and a leaf pillow on the deceased's head, a common occurrence when religious leaders were buried. The fact that these plant elements are still inside means that the body is very well preserved. In addition to the tombs, elements of painted sculptures were also discovered. They were identified as parts of the original 13th century rood screen, an architectural element separating the altar from the nave. Erotic graffiti. Unique archaeological artifacts were found on the island of Astipaleia in Greece. Some of the oldest erotic carvings and descriptions of intimate relationships between men, dating back to the 5th or 6th centuries before Christ. This discovery was made by Dr. Andreas Vlahopoulos during a field trip with students. Male genitalia are depicted on the limestone slabs, with inscriptions in ancient Greek engraved nearby. Nicosidum was here on top of Timaeon, which emphasizes the openness and detail of the depiction of sexual scenes. These findings tell us about the personal and intimate side of life in ancient Greece, about which not much is known. Relationships between men in ancient Greece were widely accepted, but rarely discussed publicly. The images and inscriptions are made in the style of that time using the Greek alphabet, which makes them an important testament to the cultural and social life of the era. For 2 millennia, the graffiti has endured open air and weather, yet remains surprisingly well preserved. Birth certificate. Before you is a Sumerian birth certificate over 4,000 years old, made of 2 clay tablets, one with cuneiform writing, the other with a child's foot imprint. In ancient Mesopotamia, such tablets were used as official documents confirming a person's birth. The cuneiform text probably lists the child's and parents' names, birth date, and maybe astrological predictions. And the footprint served as a kind of personal signature, a unique way to identify the infant. This artifact shows how advanced the bureaucratic systems were in Sumer. Even then, people understood the importance of documentation, and such records could be used to confirm inheritance or social rights. This is a real window into the ancient world, which seems so distant, but in some ways is very similar to ours. The Pot Cave. 67 kilometers from the city of Casas Grandes, in the northern Mexican state of Chihuahua, lies one of the oldest archaeological sites in Mexico, Cueva de la Ola, the Pot Cave. This rock formation is part of a complex located in the Valley of the Caves, Valle de las Cuevas. It is a vast natural complex situated on top of the Casas Grandes Mountains. Cueva de la Ola, a site characteristic of the Paquimé culture, consists of 7 adobe rooms built in a rock shelter. In the center of the cave, you can see an interesting artifact, an enormous QX comate, about 3 meters tall, which is where the name of the site, Cueva de la Ola, comes from. Literally, it means pot cave. A QX comate is a traditional vessel for storing corn, squash, amaranth, and other cultivated crops made from clay and straw. Other regional sites have similar storage facilities. The rooms and granaries show the area's typical ancient architecture. Cueva de la Ola is dated to around 950 to 1060 AD, while the emergence of the Pokimi culture is estimated to be around the year 700 AD. The Herculaneum Scroll Mystery. With artificial intelligence and advanced X-ray technology, scientists have deciphered the text of an ancient Herculaneum scroll for the first time. These unique artifacts, which survived the eruption of Vesuvius in the year 70 AD, remained a mystery for almost 2,000 years. The scrolls were discovered in the 1750s among the ruins of a Roman villa, but after the disaster, they turned into charred, fragile rolls that could not be unrolled without being destroyed. Most of them are kept in the National Library of Naples, and a few copies are in Oxford. In 2023, the Vesuvius Challenge competition was launched, aimed at finding technologies to decipher these texts. Recently, researchers announced a major breakthrough. Using high-energy X-ray scanning and artificial intelligence algorithms, They managed to create the first image of the inside of a scroll from Oxford. Scientists have already identified several words, one of which is the Greek word disgust. Although the text is still fragmentary, the method continues to improve. More than 1,000 similar scrolls are kept in Naples, and now researchers have hope for their deciphering. 3 skulls and high-tech devices. Let's talk about a mystery that I managed to discover, literally while digging through the internet. And although there's little information about this and not a single article has been confirmed by official sources, I feel that I just have to share this with you. In 2014 in Antarctica, Russian scientists, according to some reports, found 3 human skulls that are over 80,000 years old. They found them in a thawed cave. It is reported that the Russian researchers got there before their American colleagues, despite their strong desire to get there. This story quickly gained attention among believers in Atlantis and Hyperborea. Some claimed that the skulls belonged to representatives of these mythical civilizations. According to reports, in 2019, an article appeared stating that the skulls were elongated, like those of the Peruvians from the Paraxes caves. But here's the catch. After 2019, information was even scarcer, but an interesting detail emerged from America. Steve Alex Bonnet, a former polar explorer, said on a podcast that the Russians found not only skulls, but also ancient technologies. Moreover, he suggested that this civilization could have been extraterrestrial. Maybe it's all just made up, but let's imagine it's true. Russian polar explorers discovered ancient civilization technologies, possibly alien, so it's no surprise the Academy of Sciences is concealing this. If true, the polar explorers delivered these artifacts to scientific institutes where they are now being studied. And who knows, maybe soon we'll learn about new technological breakthroughs thanks to their work. So let's wish the scientists good luck and dive into the next archaeological cache together. The world's first trash can. Archaeological excavations in the area known as the British Pompeii have revealed amazing facts about ancient waste disposal methods. A discovery made at Must Farm near Peterborough turned out to be an ancient equivalent of a trash can, which is about 3,000 years old. This object, made from 2 pieces of wood, contained broken metal items ready to be melted down. This indicates a progressive approach to recycling among Bronze Age communities. The research allowed us to delve into the lives of people who lived in the 850s before Christ. Finding 10 roundhouses destroyed by fire and preserved in silt gave unique insights into the lives of a community of 50 to 60 people. Finding a bucket for collecting scrap metal challenged the notion of primitiveness then, showing ancient people were sophisticated and practical in recycling waste. Must Farm is a true time capsule, preserving not only unique artifacts but also an entire Bronze Age settlement, including the only round tented settlement in Britain and a collection of glass beads unparalleled in the country. Lip Castle. Located 3 kilometers from the town of Roscrea, Ireland, it is considered the most sinister place in the country. Built around the year 1250, it became home to the bloodthirsty O'Carroll clan. Betrayals, murders, and torture took place here, and numerous ghosts still roam its halls. The history of the castle began with a tragedy. 2 brothers from the O'Bannon clan argued over power and decided to jump off a cliff to determine the winner. The survivor became the leader of the clan, and the castle was named Bennon's Leap. Later, the fortress was taken by the O'Carrolls, known for their cruelty. In 1532, O'Carroll killed his brother, a priest at the altar during Mass. Since then, his ghost has haunted the bloody chapel, where lights are sometimes seen from the windows. In 1922, workers discovered a pit beneath the castle with the remains of 150 people. In the Middle Ages, prisoners were thrown in here and simply forgotten. Some castle ghosts are friendly, like Emily, a girl who died falling from the wall. Witnesses report seeing her fall, but she vanishes before hitting the ground. However, there is a much more sinister entity, the Elemental, an ancient spirit that may have been summoned by druids. It rarely appears, but is seen as the castle's most dangerous inhabitant. The castle is partly restored today, yet its dark history endures. Tours are held here, and many guests leave Leap with the feeling that someone is watching them. Would you like to visit a castle with ghosts And could you spend at least one night alone in the castle? Write in the comments below the video and don't forget to give a thumbs up. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everyone.